Hey, thanks so much for watching. Today I get the pleasure of building a board by Clawsome boards called the Coupe. The Coupe is a really low-cost 61 key, 60% mechanical keyboard. One of the cool features of it though is that it has exposed diodes across the top. I personally think that any keyboard that has, the circuitry exposed for you to see as kind of a focal point is a really cool feature, so I'm excited to get to build this one. All of Clawboard's shop is a la carte, meaning you can just buy the board itself, you can buy the board with hot swap sockets, you can buy diodes, you can buy the microcontrollers, all of that from the site. And it's up to you what you want to source from them and what you would like to source elsewhere. So I grabbed the board, the standoffs, the diodes, the microcontroller, all because it was really reasonably priced and I didn't really feel like, sourcing it elsewhere. If you're at all interested in building the Coupe after watching this video, please use GROW60 at checkout. You'll get 15% off and help me out a little bit. So here are some things I used for my build. First, the Coupe board itself and the bottom part of the case. So this build doesn't actually have a plate to it, so keep that in mind. We'll also be using Gateron yellows for this build, but any MX style switch will work fine. A fun part of this build is that you get to solder on the diodes yourself. A lot of boards come with pre-soldered, extremely tiny diodes, so they're just ready to go, but this one you get kind of a hand in building. So I'll get into that later, but just remember you're gonna need diodes. Now the brains of this board is the Elite C controller. You can do the Pro Micro if you wish, but I was interested in having USB-C on all my boards, so I just went with the Elite C controller, which they sell on their website. You're also going to need these little pins because literally nothing is soldered onto the PCB when you get it. You're going to need these pins to go into the board so that you can solder on your microcontroller. You will also obviously need stabilizers and keycaps. Up to you. So big shout out to Clawsome boards. They've got some really cool options on their website. Go check them out. I'll put a link in the description. But they've got everything from 60% to TKL, they've got macro pads, they've got really anything you can think of, all with this cool, similar design where the diodes are exposed and it has kind of spacing, kind of very pleasant symmetry for all of them. So check them out. So our first task is to pre-bend some of these diodes. Now, I've just found that it works best if you pre-bend each of these and then slide them through the holes at the top of the board. So once you bend it, there is a little black line on your diode and a little white line on the naming of the diodes here. And basically you just want to line those two up. So you want to do that about 600 times and then you're ready to solder on your diodes. Time to work on getting these pins installed on our PCB so that we can solder on the microcontroller. Now, the important thing to remember here is that we want the microcontroller to be on the bottom, which means we want the long end of the pins to be facing down. So that's the next step here. With all of our diodes and our microcontroller installed, we are ready to put our stabilizers on, and then after that, we are ready to solder on our switches. All right, we have our stabilizers installed, and now we're ready to solder on our switches. I made a mistake and got 3-pin switches. If you have the opportunity to get 5-pin, it's going to be a huge help because there is no plate for this. Meaning, if I put that in there, right, it falls right out. Just keep that in mind. If you are doing this kit, do 5-pin MX switches. Sweet. Okay, so we've got all the switches on minus 1. Now, I made a mistake. I made another mistake, and I was gonna just fix it and then just move on, but I thought that it could be valuable for you to learn from my mistake. So, on the bottom plate, there's instructions, and here's what they say. Solder in diodes, which we did. Solder in pin rails for the microcontroller. Solder the switches. Now, if you've noticed, by the way I read that, I actually soldered the microcontroller in one step too early. Now, the reason I bring that up is because now there is one switch where the pins are actually beneath the microcontroller. There's there's pads for a switch right beneath that. So because of that, I need to desolder the microcontroller and resolder it back on after I put this switch on. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I made that mistake. That one's on me, but I hope that if you're watching this and you're interested in building this, just read the directions on the bottom plate so that you know how to do this in the future. I'm going to fix that, and then I'll be ready to mount this thing to the bottom plate and install some keycaps.